I'm Milt Schoen, Hennepin County Veteran Service Officer, and welcome to America Salutes. Today we have Ronald Henke with us as our guest, and Ron has a very special background in the VA. He has been director of the St. Paul VA Regional Office, and he's been in charge of compensation and pension for the entire VA system. So welcome to our program, Ron.
Yeah, thank you, Milt.
One of the things that you did when you brought yourself as director of Minneapolis is you emphasized training, and I'm sure both of your staff, but as a county veteran service officer, I was impressed by the emphasis that you placed on training stakeholders that worked in the claims process.
Well, I think training was instrumental to what we were trying to do in St. Paul, and that was to improve the whole claims process, not only in the timeliness of the claim, but in the quality of the claim. And in order to do that, we not only had to train internally, we had to work with the people who brought us the claims, which in this state are the county veteran service officers. We did a fairly extensive training process in both aspects to ensure that the claim, when it came in, was as good as it could be, and that once we got it, that we could handle it as quickly and with the best quality and with the most fairness to the veterans that were involved.
And for your operations, the better the claims that you received, that allowed you to focus your attention on those more difficult or more challenging claims where you might have to get records or that would take substantially more effort for you to come to a decision.
That's correct. We initiated a process that at the time was called PARDS, and those claims that came in under that process were largely claims that had all the development completed, and in large part to not only the veterans themselves, but to the county service officers and the veterans organization service officers that were stationed within the regional office. But we were able to take those and move those through quickly and get a decision made, and at the same time we were also developing those claims that were extremely difficult to get the evidence that we needed to be able to come to a fair decision for the veteran.
And St. Paul has, under your tenure, was one of the highest performing regional offices in the VA system, and oftentimes you were telling us that you were brokering in work, and I think that was a reflection that you were able to do the work efficiently.
Well, I thank you for the compliment, and most of that goes to the people who are actually working at the St. Paul regional office. And I know that when I would go to conferences and I would mention that we were doing brokered work, that it was always, I won't say always, but it was not always met with kindness. But on the other hand, we had a philosophy in St. Paul that we would do the absolute best we could to take care of the veterans of Minnesota. But at the same time, we also knew that there were veterans throughout the country that needed help, and we were willing to assist in that endeavor so that they could get the benefits that they were entitled to in a timely fashion.
And there were many notable things that occurred, and I recall during the Atlanta Olympics that the VA shut down the VA regional office, and they transferred the calls to the St. Paul regional office, and there was a substantially better service, that the drop calls decreased substantially, and that was a very effective endeavor that you led.
Behind that also was the consolidation of the VA insurance business from St. Paul into Philadelphia, which had a larger share of the VA insurance. But we had these people who were already trained in large aspects of VA law that we could utilize to assist another office. And the Summer Olympics in Atlanta came at right about that time, and so we very quickly set up a telephone unit to take over the calls for them, because they were actually not allowed to go into the regional office because of the Olympics. From that, we expanded that service to throughout the country in taking overflow calls. Whenever their queues would get filled, they would spill over into St. Paul. We also expanded our hours from earlier in the morning till early evening so that veterans could call at times when they were not at work, which seems to make sense. When you're working, it's pretty hard to make telephone calls in a lot of jobs and instances. So we expanded that, and we got a lot of calls from veterans, you know, before and after. This also necessitated us to learn the various state law and regulation in places other than Minnesota. I think that basically the veteran community knows that there is state law that deals with veterans benefits as well as federal, but each state is a little bit different. So as we progressed, we had to learn those, and it was a big learning curve on part of our people, but they did very well, and I appreciate that, and hopefully the veterans appreciate that as well.
And yeah, you also, what that reflects is a change of thought to focus on the customer, to focus on the veterans and the veterans' needs, and to say that you'd move beyond, you know, 9 to 5 hours, that you were focusing on our veterans and trying to reach them where they were, rather than, as in the past, these are our hours.
Yeah, well, yes. To me, it just didn't make sense. You know, why are you open when the veteran can't call? You need to be open when the veteran can call, and that's what we tried to do.
And the VA, I've been around long enough to see it in transition, that it's moving from where it was to where it's going to be. And we currently have a pension center here, and I think that's reflective of the confidence of central office and the VA that this regional office is effective in the work that it does and its ability to accomplish a mission.
Yeah. The very beginnings of that started when I was still in St. Paul, and they came to fruition after I moved into headquarters in Washington. And there was considerable competition for those centers. There was considerable politics, let me say, within the VA for those centers. St. Paul was able to demonstrate the quality of the workforce, the space that we needed, the IT that we needed, and as a result, they were awarded the largest geographic area as far as the pension business is concerned.
And it's not without its challenges, because sometimes, just as in the military, in the VA you see mission creep, and what was envisioned gets expanded upon, and it can be more challenging to do that work.
Well, I think that it's just like in any business or anything you do, when people see that you can do the job, they tend to ask you to do more of that job and or additional work. St. Paul, I think over the years, has responded very well to that in taking on additional work. It's not only in the claims process, but in loan guarantee, we did the same thing. We initially had a fairly small loan guarantee department that covered Minnesota, North and South Dakota. However, in the consolidation process, St. Paul became a prominent figure again, and we, in essence, took over the entire loan guarantee processing of the middle of the country. So that's another instance of quality people here wanting to do work for veterans and to do it well.
And one of the things that impressed me about loan guarantee here is we get their statistics at our conferences, and the number of veterans that our loan guarantee centers worked with, that the number they've been able to keep in their homes and find an alternative to foreclosure, and to work with veterans to keep them in their homes. And that's an aspect of the VA home loan guarantee system that many people are not aware of.
I think many veterans and many people are not even aware of the VA loan guarantee program. And in addition to that, they are not aware of the amount of work that it takes to run a successful loan guarantee program. And when I say successful, I'm referring to what you said as far as being able to keep veterans who get into some difficulty in their homes so that they are not foreclosed on. It's very expensive for the veteran. It's very heart-wrenching for the veteran and his or her family. And it's also very expensive for not only the VA, but for the financial community.
Well, that reminds me of another leadership moment, and we had a structured independent living program that worked with veterans who were starting their life over, that had been through chemical dependency treatment, and they were rebuilding. And some of those foreclosed homes wound up going to this organization, and the veterans would have to work and pay a percentage of their rent to maintain it. But that has been a very successful program, and I don't believe it would have been so without our office here in St. Paul providing decent properties to that nonprofit.
Well, I remember when it first started, and people couldn't believe that we were, in effect, giving houses away. However, when it was explained as to what the purpose was and what we were doing, and subsequently what the outcomes were and how successful the program became, it became very easily understood that it was the right thing to do.
And there's that art of, in the VA, we have the healthcare side of the house and we have the benefits side of the house, and not always have both sides communicated well together or worked well together. And that is an instance where that happened, and we've had some instances that have occurred since. Right now, there are 58 units of housing that on Fort Snelling property that was the medical center's property. They'll be developed into housing for homeless veterans. Well, those veterans will be people who have been served by the regional office, and there's a process of working together to say we've got a common aim to get that we need to accomplish.
Well, I think that's marvelous. I mean, that we're able to serve veterans in that regard. And I think it's also marvelous that a use has been found for that property, and it's in a location that is you can get to both St. Paul and Minneapolis. It's in a location that that has substantial outdoors, so that there is some freedom, and I understand there are families that are going to be going in there as well. It ought to be a wonderful opportunity for those people, and I just hope that it that it is a successful endeavor.
Well, we're very hopeful that it's going to be successful, and you have to have the will to do it in the first place. And then you have to have partners that are willing to work together, and that's happening. There's 140 units of sober housing on the Minneapolis VA Medical Center campus that is available, and there are many efforts with homeless vets that are taking forward with HUD-VASH vouchers and other things. So we're in our last half minute or so. Are there any thoughts that you'd like to leave our viewers with about being a veteran and being served?
Well, I would like to say thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I would also like to say thank you for all the work that you do as far as veterans and all the innovations. We talked about VA, but you have to remember that a lot of this started with you and people like you, and the willingness and the cooperation. So I think veterans owe you a salute as well.
Well, I think they owe many in this state. We've got a lot of CVSOs, and we've got our national service organizations, and in this state we work as a team, and I've seen elsewhere where that doesn't necessarily happen, but I think that's why we're successful in this state. So with that, I want to thank you, and thank you for what you've done, Ron, because you, as director of the regional office, really made our region, our St. Paul office, one that can serve veterans going forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.